I thought today we might cover a few things around how to create a little bit more stability in our dance schools and hopefully reduce a little bit of worry or stress around kind of paying our bills and worrying about the heating costs and inflation and all those other things that kind of hang over us. So I'm going to ask a bunch of questions of you today. And in asking these questions, hopefully that will trigger some, oh, yes, I could really do with going and diving a bit deeper into those topics or those areas. So the first thing I want to ask you is, do you really know your numbers and your figures? Now, I hold my hands up to this. I was horrendous at this. And to be fair, I know the answer because I speak to multiple dance school owners on a daily basis. And the majority of people don't have great control over their numbers and figures. So if I was to say to you, for example, how many students do you have as of today? Can you pluck that number out of your head, or do you have to go and look that up on your software or in a spreadsheet? If I said, how many of those students do multiple classes? What's the percentage that do multiple classes? Maybe if I said to you, what's your annual income? What's your monthly income? What are your costs? How many kids do you have on average in a class? What number of spaces do you have in your classes that are empty? Like, all of these are figures and numbers that a lot of businesses would be able to, if not pluck them out of their minds, they would be, within 2 clicks, be able to access that information. And I wasn't able to do that. Like, I might have had a bit of an idea of how many kids there are in the school, but if I went to get a car loan and I'm filling out a sheet and there's, what's your income? Oh my gosh, I had no idea. I used to say to people, I don't know. I have no clue. I just know that there's a bit left at the end of each term and that I take, but I don't know what that figure is. And they'd look at me as if to say, how do you not know how much you earn? But I really, honestly and truly couldn't have put a figure on that. So knowing your numbers and figures, if you know what percentage of the fees that come in is actual profit, is actual pennies for you to spend on you and your families, then this makes a really big difference in the decisions that we make. It could be that you are buying things for your studio or spending money on costumes or on events that you just don't have, that the school doesn't have. And it's sucking any profit that there is in the school out so that at the end of the month or the term, there is no money left over. And if you really realize that, would you spend the money on that super beautiful tutu, or would you compromise a little bit so that there's a little bit of money left in the bank so that you can pay for your kids to do piano lessons? Like, I feel that sometimes we put our school first, we put our pupils first, and we don't take care of ourselves and our families. So I know that sounds a little bit harsh, but you know, I'm literally talking to Deborah 10 years ago because I know what I was like. So really knowing your numbers and your figures. And the second question I have for you today is, do you really have an awareness of your timetable and your classes and whether or not they are profitable classes or not profitable classes? So I used to run a traffic light system with my classes. I would make them red if I knew they lost money. Like, categorically, I would know my advanced 1 ballet class only had 2 kids in it, and the studio, the hall itself that I hired was more expensive than the kids paid, let alone paying myself a wage and my petrol and my accountant's fees and my insurance and blah, blah, blah. So I knew that class was in the red. Easy peasy. But there were other classes that I was perhaps not quite so sure on. You know, do my classes go in the red when I've only got 4 or when I've only got 5? Or are they in the red right up until I have 10? Like, I liked to know how many students I needed in a class on average in order to be at least covering my costs. So I would have them as red if they definitely didn't break even and they were sucking the profit out of my school. I would have them on amber if the classes broke even but didn't earn any money. And then I would have them on green if they definitely earned money and they were turning over a lovely profit. Now, what you could do is write all your classes down, put them in a little chart, and then color them all in, and then have a little look at those colors. If the majority of them are green and there's only the occasional amber or red class, that's not so bad. But if there's quite a lot of amber classes and more than one or two red classes, then the money that's required to support those red classes is coming out of the green ones, which means the green ones are not doing so well. And if we're not careful, we can get to the stage that it all just balances itself out. Or worst case scenario, the school is losing money, and maybe you have a second job that is having to prop up the money that's lost in the school, or maybe you have a partner that helps with the running costs. So I think it's really important that we know every single class on our timetable and whether it's red, amber, or green. And if you do have one or two too many red classes or even amber classes, what is the plan? Like, we can't just carry on month after month after month running those classes, losing money. Are you looking at it thinking, right, okay, I'm going to tackle this. These 3 classes that break even, but they don't earn any money, they're going to be my focus for advertising for the next 3 months. Like, I'm going to get so many new kids in those classes that they turn green by Easter or by Christmas or by the end of the summer. And the red classes, if they're classes that you just need to spend some time on advertising and building up, fair enough. But if they're classes that you think, gosh, they've been this size for the last 5 years, like they're not going to grow, you need to really ask yourself, is there enough money in the school to support them? Or do I need to cancel them? Do they need to come off? Do I need to make some tough decisions here? So I thought I would just share with you guys today the planners that I have produced for dance school owners, because these are flying out of Amazon like hotcakes. And if you don't have yours yet, then all you have to do is pop to Amazon and type into the search Deborah Laws, and all 3 books will come up. So the ultimate dance business planner I designed for you so that you had a little bit of a Deborah on your desktop. The planners are full of business training, tips, motivational quotes, things to do at the start of the month, things to do at the end of the month, ways in which you can plan out your marketing and your retention, and they are selling all over the world. So go to Amazon, grab your #1 best-selling Ultimate Dance Business Planner, and enjoy mapping out the growth for your studio. Because all of this builds up to what we call business health. We need our business to be healthy, just like we need to be healthy as human beings. And healthy businesses are not healthy if they're mostly red and orange. So, really knowing your numbers and figures is so important at being able to make the right decisions. And then the next thing I would say, if you are struggling a little bit to make ends meet, is to dive into your business accounts, your bank accounts, or whichever accounts you have money that comes out of for the business, and look at what it is that you're paying out every month, every term, every year. What are those expenses? So these are the things that are known as the expenses, the costs incurred for running your school. Are there things in there that you don't need? Like, are there things that you're paying for that you'd forgotten you were paying for? Maybe you have insurance that's crippling you and you haven't shopped around for several years, and you could find something way cheaper. We know we're always gobsmacked, aren't we, when we do this personally for ourselves? We shop around for car insurance, home insurance, and we realize that we can find much cheaper somewhere else. And when you actually look at it, it's a few £100s. So are there expenses in your business where you can trim, either by researching and moving to another company, or maybe cancelling a few things straight away, like full stop. How many of us have apps that we downloaded that we paid for that we don't use? It was a great idea at the time, and now we're paying $3.49 a month for it, and we haven't used it for the last 6 months. Really look at those expenses, because I did this a few years ago when I got divorced, and I was gobsmacked at how much money I managed to save myself by doing this exercise. And then I'd love you to have a little think about your retention, to just create some more awareness around this. Again, I used to bury my head in the sand around retention. I had a few teachers. I found it incredibly hard finding teachers. And when I had a teacher, it wasn't just a case of saying, oh gosh, she's not going down very well. The kids don't love her. She's not that great. I'll get rid of her and replace her with someone else. Because very often there wasn't someone else to replace her with. So I had to keep this teacher. So rather than do something about the fact that, there are a few things that weren't going so well, and have tricky conversations or help or mentor this teacher, I buried my head in the sand and just hoped that people would stop leaving and it would be okay. Now, bit of tough love here. Listen to your gut. If you had 20 kids in a class when you taught the class, and then someone has taken it over and now you've got 5, there's a reason that's happening. And what I would say to you is, when I was in this position, I really wished that I'd stepped in sooner. I really wished that I'd stepped in when the numbers had dropped to 15, not when they dropped to 5 and it was too late. So is there something that you need to be saying to yourself around your retention? Do you know how to measure it? Do you know how to work out your retention? That I have a fabulous masterclass that I created called Retention Solutions. And in the masterclass, there's about 5 or 6 videos and a workbook. And the very first video is all about teaching you how to work out the actual mathematical equation, so you can work out what percentage of students you retain every month. And you can do this for yourself as a school, but you can also do it per teacher as well. And it's really good for giving you the factual information so that you can, really assess this properly. And then the last thing I was going to mention on today's podcast around, having a healthy business and creating some stability or some awareness in your business is, are you working in all areas of your business, or do you avoid certain areas because you don't enjoy it or you're not particularly good at it? So say, for example, you've heard everyone talking about Canva, which is the app, the software that you can use to create posters and social media posts and reels and newsletters. And, it's a graphic design software, but maybe you don't have a clue how to use Canva, or you're just not a very creative person. And so you just kind of avoid that. And because you avoid using that, you don't really do great things on social media, or maybe your brochure doesn't look that great, or your program, is iffy, or you have to pay somebody to design it because you're not able to design it yourself. So you avoid that area of the business. So I like to think about the business sort of chunking it down into 5 different areas. I call it the 5 pillars to running a successful business. And those pillars are strategy, which is, by the way, the number one most important thing; team; attraction, which is obviously your marketing and advertising; retention, which we spoke about just now; and systems. So this is all your, basically anything that you do spend time on admin and in your office. Because sometimes we can spend a lot of time on our admin and keeping our customers happy and creating great events for our students, so our retention is great. The kids love our school. It's all about the kids and the parents. And of course it should be, but maybe you neglect your team. Maybe you neglect mentoring them, keeping an eye on them, inspiring them, being there for them. So maybe that pillar, that one pillar of the 5 pillars, is a little bit or maybe, and I'll tell you the one that I have identified in the last 3 years that is by far the worst for everyone. And I think you think it's going to be marketing, but it's actually not. It's the first one. It's the strategy, the planning. So many people say to me, oh, Deborah, this is the bit that's missing for me. I don't plan things very well. I don't have a structure to my day. I just get up every day and I put out fires, and I don't have time to work on the bigger picture, on the vision of the school. You know, that side of things just never gets looked at. Like the boardroom, like the companies that have a boardroom, they have a meeting and they have a planning session and they create a quarterly plans and the goals and strategies, and that's the bit that is missing for an awful lot of dance school owners, which is a big part of what I coach in my memberships. So I really love you to look at those 5 areas: strategy, team, attraction, retention, and systems. Do you work equally in all 5 areas, or do you avoid certain areas that you should really look at in more depth? It's just about balance. You know, we talk about work-life balance. This is about balancing the different aspects of running a business. So I hope that's not answered. I hope that's raised a few questions that might help you. Knowing your numbers and figures and having real clarity over your business health. Really looking at your classes, go through that little exercise of the traffic lights system, working out, you know, do I need to have a serious talk to myself about certain classes, trimming those expenses, becoming more aware of retention and how your students, how your teachers are doing in terms of maintaining retention, and then looking at yourself in terms of whether you work in a balanced way. There's a whole heap of stuff for you to think about there. I would love it if you were inspired by this episode to get in touch. Like, let's talk about this stuff. If you would love a free one-to-one half-hour chat with me, I would really love to dive into your school, obviously very briefly, have a look at some of the areas, identify some places where you could work more, or change a few things or learn a bit more. And then, of course, I'm going to share with you on that one-to-one how you could work with me, and we could maybe look at you joining me in one of my memberships. So do please private message me on Facebook or Instagram. Reach out if you'd like to have that chat. And I would be delighted to see if I can help you create more in your school. Take care, everyone. Are you looking to get precious time back in your life so you can make more time doing the things you love? Dance Biz is a class management and booking software from the lovely folk at Think Smart that will automate and streamline all your dance school admin. It's the perfect tool for all those tasks that just seem to take so long, and will help you to work smarter, not harder. Message me today, folks, and I can give you a code so you can get 2 months free.